Hey everybody, and welcome back to Split Couch Games. This is podcast number 2. It's the second, so
Ben and Scott.
hopefully this is not shit. But yeah,
Have some faith.
I mean, I think the other one went well, but we won't know until I edit it. We're recording this one before we would like to because of holiday travel and stuff. So this one is not going to have any news because there's no news to talk about.
I mean, we could talk about Tracer being gay again.
We could. I mean, I'm sure people will still be upset about it.
Probably.
But anyway, I do want to just get it right into it because people are going to be clicking on this, hopefully because they read Rogue One spoiler review.
Rogue One spoiler review.
I don't know, something like that. It's going to be something like that.
Okay. Before we get too far into it, we will briefly talk about the movie without any spoilers. Yep. So if anybody hasn't seen it, you can stick around. And before we say anything super spoilery, we will give off warnings. So, you know.
That's the spoiler warning. It's not.
No.
I'm never going to make that noise again. In fact, what noise? It's not there.
Whoa.
Movie magic. Anyway. So yeah. So Ben and I generally agree on the movie, but I think we're going to disagree on a few points, as we always do.
I mean, maybe not. You never know.
So what did you think of the movie?
I thought it was good. When it comes to movies, I typically like to give them time to not only fester a bit, mm-hmm. Kind of sit and mull things over, but I also usually like to try and give them more than one shot. Because there was a lot that I missed the first time around in The Force Awakens, which I think colored my initial opinions. I did enjoy The Force Awakens, but there was a lot of kind of nitty-gritty sort of stuff sprinkled throughout that didn't quite make any sense. And I feel like that could possibly be the same thing here. You and I have a tendency to kind of pay attention to different parts of the movie. Mm-hmm. So, I typically kind of sit there and I enjoy it and just kind of let it happen to my face for the first time around. Whereas you have a tendency to just, hyper-analyze everything and just in
hyper-analyze is a harsh term. It's kind of accurate.
I mean, I feel like it's really accurate. Just simply because I don't feel like it's possible for you to sit down and actually just enjoy a fucking movie. You gotta criticize it in your head the entire time.
So that's where you're kind of wrong. I do that if the movie doesn't grab me. If the movie is not just instantly I'm in the movie, then I know that I'm watching a movie, and then I begin to analyze what I'm seeing as opposed to just experiencing it.
You have the weirdest fucking expectations between different forms of media.
I do. I really, really do.
You're I have to be in the movie, but then with video games, you're I don't fucking care about immersion or anything. What? God damn it, Scott.
So the reason why, that's weird, and, I do want to say that, I did enjoy Rogue One. I feel like it's a very divisive movie so far from what people have said. People are oh, this is the greatest Star Wars movie, or this is the weirdest Star Wars, or the most not great Star Wars movie outside of the prequels, or whatever the case may be. I felt like it was a really good entry. But overall, I don't really see, I don't have a favorite Star Wars movie. I just enjoy all of Star Wars for what it is. And that is just a wonderful universe that you can go into and have fun with.
For sure.
And so, I'm not going to base this off of the singular movie. I will say that I think that this movie would have been better if it was not a Star Wars movie. But we'll get into that as we get into the spoiler portion of it. Definitely think that you should see it, though. When I say that it would be better as not a Star Wars movie, I just mean that, I think it hurt itself by being forced into a box that it had to fill.
So if you're wanting to avoid spoilers for Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, leave now.
Spoilers.
if you don't care, then hang around and we're going to talk about the movie in detail, and spoilers be afoot.
Spoilers are everywhere.
Yar.
Okay, so we're gonna start at the very beginning of the movie, right? I enjoyed the first section where Jin's dad gets or mom's get Jin's mom gets murdered and dad gets kidnapped, or basically kidnapped and taken away. Great scene, great introduction to those characters and all that. But then as soon as the title screen comes up and then you run off to this other planet with some character that you don't know, and I'm like, what's going on here? And and then they start like talking about this planet, and they start talking about this other planet, and like all these things that are happening with all these different characters, and it's just like I was confused at that moment, and because I was confused for that brief amount of time, it took me out of the movie right then. And it did a good job of bringing me back in, but there was still like I didn't get drawn into the movie as much as I would have liked. And on that note, like kind of like you said, I think that it's going to be a much better movie the second time.
I do agree with you that the way they decided to do all the character introductions, jumping from one to the other and everything, that was a bit jarring.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't understand how that messes you up, but the Transformer movies are okay.
Because
honestly, for me, like, bad writing and bad acting is far worse than poor editing choice. Or even, poor direction in regards to, like, this is how we're going to do the beginning of the movie.
I mean, it depends on, like, I guess, like, the way to put it is that, like, I do hold Star Wars to a higher standard than the Transformer movies. Like, I go in to a Star Wars movie and I expect to be amazed by what I'm seeing and all that. And with the Transformers movie, like, I know that I'm not going to get, like, an Oscar-worthy performance out of the actors, or the writing is not going to be great. Like, there's going to be some cheesy punchlines and stuff like that. But that's what I'm going to that movie for. I'm going there for the fun of it. Like, I'm going to come out of it, I'm going to be like, that scene was awesome, and then never think about the movie again. And that's okay with me. But with Star Wars, I want to like really learn more about the universe, and just better writing. Like, the characters in this movie were amazing. Like, the characters were great. The direction was great. Just the opening was a little wonky, and I would have liked to see that tightened up a little bit, because I feel like there was no reason for them to or for Cassian's character to be on a different planet at that time and figure everything out. I felt like it could have just as easily been everything happened on Jeddah, and then basically like Jin gets captured on Jeddah and she's in on her way to a camp, but then Cassian and the robot, it's like KSA2 or something like that, rescue her there, and then the whole thing with oh, we need you to get us in to talk to Saw happens on that planet, but she's still a friend of Saw throughout, as opposed to coming back to him, and then that way she gets it's much more clear cut what's happening, and it also gives her much more personal motivation when Jeddah gets destroyed by the Death Star. She's like, holy shit, that's the place that I've been fighting to protect my whole life.
Yeah.
As opposed to just some hologram from her dad that yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I felt like the character introductions were a little heavy-handed almost. Mm-hmm. They made it a point that, you pay attention to this person right here in this one specific scene on a completely different planet, because they'll be important later on.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like that is really the only proper way to do things when it comes to Star Wars. Because Star Wars isn't all about like closed off sections of things. I mean, like every movie planet hops from one place to the
Yeah,
next and everything. And I honestly felt like part of the problem with Force Awakens was the lack of variety in the scenery and the backdrops and everything. Like there wasn't anything real standoutish to me.
sure.
Whereas this movie has several different, environments that the characters end up being in, and a handful of places that like I will remember years down the road. But like the only place of any significance really that I can remember from Force Awakens, and it's been a while since I've seen it last, but would be I can't remember her name, the like bar owner lady or whatever.
Maz
Uh,
Kanata.
yeah, like her little cantina or whatever. Like that's really the only place that I remember. Everything else is just kind of like, a dark area in a different environment. So it's like they could literally be like 20 miles away, but it's a pile of sand instead of some trees, and then Imperial bases,
Sure.
or New Order bases, I guess.
Yeah.
But whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I get that, and like, I'm not opposed to the planet hopping. I just felt like it was planet hopping for the sake of planet hopping, as opposed to each place having a purpose. Like the scene where Cassian shoots the guy in the back because he was a hindrance was actually a really important scene that ended up being a lot more important than I thought it was going to.
Yeah.
And I like that's why on the second viewing I'm like, okay, this is going to make more sense to me. That didn't need to happen where it was. Like that planet was literally just there for that one scene, as opposed to if it had happened on Jeddah, it would have served more of a purpose. Like,
I feel like having everything happen on Jeddah would have been, it would completely undermine the entire plot of the movie, because like the entire reason that she had to run away and everything is because she was leverage against her father.
yeah,
And so if she stayed in one place for years on end, then chances are she would be found out and it'd be game over.
sure,
And so you can't really have her fighting on Jeddah. Like, you may have been able to have the one guy shot on Jeddah, but then at the same point, it's like Jeddah wasn't really like a huge Imperial installation, so the likelihood of somebody essentially going turncoat in that locale isn't the greatest, because
Yeah.
although there were Imperial forces there, they were harvesting crystals and everything. Like,
I feel like I don't feel like they would have been looking for her there on Jeddah, because like they didn't even know what she looked like. They didn't know, like they had her in custody, but they didn't know who she was. So like the Empire didn't know who she was in relation to her dad. Like she wasn't at risk at that point. So I don't think that it really mattered. Like again, like this is just nitpicking. I don't want to like sit on this for the entire time because there's so many more interesting things to talk about. But I just feel like that, and then like also they went to Yavin 4 twice, which felt really awkward to me because like they got together, like they rescued Jin, went to Yavin 4, and they were like, hey, look, Mon Mothma and like Bail Organa, and then they went off, and then after they went off and like the dad died, they went back to Yavin 4 to regroup and then continued on to the base. It just kind of felt, it didn't feel like the plot was moving forward at that, like in a way, like it just,
yeah, I get what you're saying. I don't know how else they would have done it, because it makes sense, them going back, because they had to deliver the information, and it's not like they would hold council up in space or anything,
Yeah.
orbiting a completely different planet. Like, that would just be silly. And
yeah, I mean, I just feel like they didn't need to go back after the first, after rescuing Jin. I felt like it would have been much more prudent to just be like, yo, we got Jin, we're gonna take her over to Sa now. Like,
yeah,
we're just gonna go straight there, cut out that first journey there, and I think that
Yeah.
that makes everything flow a little bit better. Obviously, she has to go through her like, I don't know if I want to help you.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that the movie has its flaws.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's never going to be an absolutely perfect movie, mainly because things like what we're talking about are completely opinion.
Saving
But
Private Ryan disagrees on the perfect movie point, but I understand what you're saying.
I haven't seen that movie recently enough to counter what you're saying, so I'm just gonna agree and we're gonna move on. Um, but no, I mean, like everything that we're saying is purely opinion. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure there are some people that loved the planet hopping in the beginning.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
sure
I
there are
mean,
some
like
people that
I'm
you
just
know,
yeah, I'm just saying that like for me, this is what took me out of the movie were those things.
yeah. I mean, honestly, if there's anything that took me out of the movie, it probably would have been towards the end.
Interesting. I was most invested in the movie at the end.
I mean, that's when I was most invested, but I thought it was very strange that they somehow got into the base and did all this shit without anybody noticing. I mean, I know they had like the disguises and everything like that, but like they are under attack elsewhere, which is obviously a huge distraction, so that explains the lack of, guards and everything. But it's kind of one of those things of like, I felt like they only ever really passed like one, maybe two security checkpoints for what is supposed to be like this Imperial installation responsible for transmitting data from a massive data storage up to the Imperial fleet.
Yeah. I feel like that's true, but also I feel like once you get down to the surface on that planet, like you're feeling pretty comfortable that everyone is supposed to be there. So like having two checkpoints is enough.
Yeah, but I mean,
Like
realistically, like, and I mean, I don't know if it's just not something that exists in the Star Wars universe, because like the more I think about it, the less I am confident in ever seeing them. But it feels as if like there's no such thing as like security cameras and that kind of shit. Like, I would think that with as advanced as what technology is, like
there
would
are
be,
security cameras. If you Revenge of the Sith, there's security footage of Anakin killing everyone.
right. Okay, so security cameras.
And then I think in A New Hope, they shoot security cameras off of the walls in the Death Star.
I think you're right, yeah. Okay, so security cameras are definitely a thing, and they are clearly used by the Empire, even in this same time frame.
Yeah.
Why the hell were they able to walk around for a very long time without any helmets or anything, and it's, like, totally fine?
I think that like,
Like, shouldn't there be, like, a droid somewhere that just goes, like, that's not okay? Like, even if it's just a simple, they have their helmets off, that's not allowed. I'm gonna call such and such person over here to fucking yell at him or something.
There's like, they're under attack from the surface, which they're not ready for. So I feel like that's where they're most, all their focus is like, how the fuck did this happen? And they're not worried about what's happening in the data center, like
Yeah, and I mean,
underground.
I don't know.
And stuff.
I understand that. It's
I
just
will
like,
say that I was taken out of it when, like, I understand that they needed it for the drama, and like having that final like meeting, but like when Jin like climbs up on the tower and she's doing her thing, and then what's his butt, the bad guy comes up and he's like, "You're gonna die," and then I'm like, "Cool, Cassian's gonna shoot him in the back," and then Cassian shoots him in the back, and I'm like, why? Like, why? Why does Cassian
right?
like?
Especially after he like fell and basically broke his back like 3 times.
I'm like, I don't need that. Like, I don't need him to be the guy. I wanted Jin to like do something, or like maybe like have like a little fight where like the TIE fighter comes by and shoots the thing again, and like they all fall over, and then there's a scramble for a gun, and then like Jin gets to finish him off. Like, that would have been so much more satisfying.
Yeah.
But anyway, that kind of goes into my biggest thing with the movie, is that like I knew how everything was going to happen, not just on
Yeah.
like a oh they're gonna get the plans and they're gonna get they're gonna get it, they're probably all gonna die, but like each individual scene there wasn't much in the way of like suspense for me. Like
Yeah.
the closest it came was when Cassian was trying to or was deciding whether or not to snipe her dad. But as someone who is watching a movie, I know that Galen Urso is going to die either by Cassian, and that's going to cause a problem, or he's going to die by the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's like it wasn't suspenseful for me, and it also kind of threw me out because like as a master spy, I felt like Cassian would have been able to read the situation and not have to decide that, and just like he should have been able to read because he was seeing exactly what we were seeing, and we were seeing like how tense everything was and what was happening as Urso went out and defended the people who just got executed right afterwards. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, they're not going to be happy with him, so let me not break my cover and shoot him if he's not getting executed. And I
Yeah.
just felt like that was just like unnecessary tension that like didn't really do anything for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't
Like
know.
I admit that I'm nitpicking, but I did feel like because there was no suspense, it took me out of the movie because I'm like, okay, this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. Like I knew
Yeah.
that Saw Gerrera was gonna die. I knew that like the fight where the blind Jedi Donnie Yen's character was going to come in. He was going to be of a bunch of stormtroopers, and then he was going to get saved by the second guy with the like. It just all kind of played out as I expected.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. Like, there were moments that happened pretty much as I expected them to. And I mean, I went into the movie as blind as I possibly could be.
Yeah.
Like, I watched main trailers and that kind of thing.
That's all
but
I
like,
did too.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I didn't really know much around the lore related to it and everything. Like, I didn't know that Jin's dad was gonna die, and I didn't know that everyone else was gonna die. I kind of assumed.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I didn't know going in either. I just, as I was watching the movie, I'm like, this is how it's going to play out.
yeah, I don't know. It was. I honestly was really hoping that Matt Pat was going to be right with his theory. Did you watch his video?
Yeah, I watched the. So for those who don't know,
would have been so much cooler.
The squad, the Rogue One squad, ends up being the Knights of Ren from The Force Awakens because they kind of fit that, like the
roles
that,
you know, like the pilot, the sniper, the, you know, one,
the monk.
Yeah, exactly.
Turns out not the case.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting theory.
That's what we wanted to have happen, and that's what Matt Pat was saying should happen.
Yeah, it would be
not.
Much better, much more fun to watch, I think.
Yeah.
But I do want to say that there were a couple of surprises in the movie that actually did. They did bring me out of the movie a little bit because I'm like, that's just so awesome that like I have to like look over at Ben and be like, yo, Ben, that was pretty awesome. But when Grand Moff Tarkin showed up on screen, and you're like, it was the most, like, it was insane. Like, I know that there's a lot of people who are like, oh, that looks like shit. I'm like, who the fuck are you? Like, are you guys just being like snobs about this? Because like this looks fucking amazing. like it's not perfect. Like, and there were a couple of times where it's like, all right, well that's clearly CGI, but for the most part, it looked fucking amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
the first couple times I saw him, like, I didn't even process the fact that like that guy's dead. How is he here? Like, it was just kind of like, oh, it's that guy.
Yeah, okay. I'm like, when I saw that, I was like, wait, but he's dead. He's a dead man.
Yeah.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the CGI on Leia and Tarkin was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and
again, I know there are a lot of people that are, you know, hating on it, and they say, you know, it's not going to age well, and they should have just recast the role and everything. But frankly, I think recasting the role would have been a poor move. Because I mean, it's kind of like it like recasting that role. I think would have fallen in the same lines as with the original trilogy. If you like go out and buy it today on Blu-ray or something, in episode excuse me, in episode 6, when Obi-Wan's ghost shows up, and when Anakin's ghost show up and everything, like they've replaced the Anakin ghost with the
with Hayden Christensen.
yeah. And personally, I think that is total bullshit. It makes a little bit of sense.
My justification for that is that that's the last time that he was truly good before he did all the bad stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. Like I'm not someone who's upset about it, but I'm like, all right. And like people who are like, just side note on that is people who make the argument that like, how would he possibly recognize him? Well, in the originals, he was like some like 40-year-old man that like there was no way that Luke was going to recognize him anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just it's the Force. He knows.
Yeah.
It's midi-chlorians and stuff like that.
But I mean, like I just thought that was a little shady.
Sure.
But like I feel like recasting Tarkin would have kind of fallen in that same realm.
I wouldn't mind the recasting, to be honest, like if that's the route that they wanted to take. But I mean, at some point, like CGI is going to get to that point where it is serviceable, and it was completely serviceable here, and like it allowed they didn't have to like do like any wink nudge like this is Tarkin. Just keep that in mind that this is Tarkin from like he looks completely different than he will in like 2 days in the Star Wars timeline.
Yeah,
like it was Tarkin. Like there were a couple shots where like it looked odd and you was like, that's CGI, but it was really well done.
Yeah,
and I think aided the movie.
Yeah, and I think that's honestly what's more important, because like he did play a role. Like it's not like he was only in there for like 2 seconds and one shot like Leia.
Yeah.
But I don't think it was a major enough role to completely recast it. So I feel like they made the right choice.
Yeah. Speaking of 2-second roles, and this is gonna be the last thing we talk about, Darth Vader was around. He was doing things.
Oh God. That was fucking amazing.
So there were 2 scenes with Darth Vader. One, he and the guy who's in charge of getting the Death Star done have like this thing, and like Darth Vader is just like so imposing, and like it's just he is Darth Vader. He is James Earl Jones' voice. He's like a foot taller than the guy, and he's just like it's on presumably Mustafar where Darth Vader like lost his limbs and everything and had to become the Darth Vader that we know.
That's where they decided to put his castle.
Yeah.
Darth Vader's castle.
Just like
canon now.
Which makes sense because then like that's where all his pain stems from, so that's what's going to make him strongest.
That makes a lot of sense now that I think about it. I hadn't really paid I was just kind of like lava waterfalls. Evil guy, okay, sure, makes sense.
Also, that absolute like his tower absolutely looked like the Lord of the Rings tower.
Oh yeah,
like I was like, what the? Make it look a little bit different.
What fucking movie is this?
I was like, this is Mount Doom. I half expect like there's like some sort of golem.
Sauron.
There's like some sort of golem like falling in like off in the distance or something. Like Golem's just out there like wee, just like really tiny. But yeah, so like that scene was really cool. I personally, again, like it kind of took me out of the movie when he was like, "Don't choke on your ambitions," which is like, just to me, it's like Darth Vader doesn't need that to be badass. He's just is badass.
Well, yeah, but I don't think it was so much to be badass as much as it was like, because I mean, like there's always been like this, almost like personality to Darth Vader that is like this slight amount of like haha funny, like even throughout like Well, I mean, through the original movies and everything, like there was like personally, there was always like just like something about him that like I couldn't take him seriously as a bad guy. Like I understood that he was the bad guy and he did bad things and everything, but like there was always something that was kind of like off about him because like he's not pure evil, and they do a good job of having him embody that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, like if he was, you know, like pure dark side, then he would have never turned against the Emperor.
Sure.
But, and I kind of feel like that joke almost like falls in line.
I mean,
with that, because
he does have like a playful. He has a playful nature to him in a lot of the scenes where it's like he just starts choking someone for no reason, or
yeah,
like because they slightly piss him off, and it's like, but like he does that silently as opposed to like, it's almost like he's trying too hard. Like it was a dad joke, and then like that.
and he's a dad, so it's okay. We can excuse it. It's fine.
I'm not upset by it. I just like it kind of rubbed me just like ever so slightly the wrong way. What did not rub me the wrong way at all
What's that last
was the last
scene? Oh my god.
Oh my, like, because like you don't think about it because maybe you do because you apparently couldn't take him seriously. But like in the original trilogy, you never really see Darth Vader be a badass. You just kind of quote unquote know that he's a badass because
he chokes people, you know,
and like people are scared of him and like whatnot, and like but really the most badass thing he did was like throw some boxes at Luke in the fight.
Like I don't think there's ever been a moment up until now where we've actually seen Darth Vader fight like Anakin.
Yeah. I mean, even then, like Anakin was always just like against bots, and like there was like some cutaway stuff in like Revenge of the Sith when he turned evil.
Sure.
But yeah, like there was no actual like really like combat from Darth Vader.
There was no like, oh shit, that's a Sith. Like there wasn't that moment ever.
Yeah, there was no like, you understood that people were afraid, but like you just like you never saw it on screen, and then like all like. The movie's coming to a close, and you're like, I wonder what's gonna like how they're gonna wrap this all up, and then like
there's Darth Vader chasing some guys down, and
like it just like there's the dark hallway, and then you just hear the breathing, and you're like,
oh shit,
like at that moment, I was 100% like invested in everything that was gonna happen next.
Yeah.
I was
at that
just
moment, like your butthole clenches a bit, and you're like, oh god,
you're like because you know that he's just going to appear out of the dark hallway because he's got the black suit, and like you know what's going to happen, and they don't know what's going to happen. They maybe have heard stories about what like Darth Vader is, but they don't know.
Yeah,
and
because a lot of those guys are young enough that they've probably never even seen a Jedi. So
yeah, and then they're just like pew pew pew, but then like he's like, nah, I'm just going to deflect that, and then I'm going to raise that guy up to the roof, and like he's going to hang up there for a bit,
cut this guy in half, and
I'm just like, this is everything that I didn't know that I was missing in my life.
Right? Like that moment was how I always imagined like my evil character in like the Old Republic would play, you know? Like just completely just overpowering people, or sorry, Knights of the Old Republic.
Knights of the,
because that to add more context.
Yeah.
But like because he just like completely overpowers this group of guys using the Force and his lightsaber, and he doesn't care how many of them he has to kill in order to get to what he's trying to get to.
Yeah,
and
which I do want to talk about that really quick, because I will say that was like a little bit, because like they waited so long just to build like the tension to get the plans to the other side.
Yeah,
but I feel like they waited too long to the point where like Darth Vader would be like, mine.
Yeah, just like force pull it out of his hand. Yeah. I thought that was a bit silly too. How it's like, in like the guy who had it.
Yeah.
The moment that door stops moving, you just get the attention of someone.
Yeah.
Flag them over, hand it off. It is no longer your responsibility. Yeah,
and I think like that was like that. Like I didn't think about that during, but like after, I was like, well, I mean, we know that Darth Vader is a badass. So like he should have come away with the plans there.
Yeah, he really should have.
Like the war's over at that point.
Yeah.
But I mean, they did have to like throw in some tension and stuff, and I get that.
Yeah.
But moral of that story is I want a rated R Darth Vader movie. Just
It honestly doesn't even have to be rated R. Like,
I think it does.
Well,
Like, because
I mean,
if it's not
I
rated
feel
R,
like, well, actually, before we get too far into this, what was Rogue One even rated?
PG-13.
Oh, it was PG. Okay, so maybe it would have to be R then.
Yeah, I
Because
mean,
I was going to say they might be able to get away with PG-13 because, like, if he's killing people using lightsabers and stuff, like,
yeah.
they're not going to be showing any blood, so it might be an acceptable level of violence. But
I think like I think there's an amount like if you have like too much violence, even if it is PG-13 violence, then it becomes rated R just by virtue
Gotcha.
of like that 100,000 people die on screen. Like
what? Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Like, we need some sort of like Dark Jedi movie. It doesn't necessarily have to be Vader.
yeah, but just something
like,
where like people understand what the Sith are capable of.
Exactly. Like, that's something I feel like we need to really establish, because that's something that I've always felt has been missing. Is like in the games and the books and everything, like the Sith are very clearly made out to be these terrible, terrible people that will, you know, kill anyone that they want to. Not even necessarily have to. Just like, you looked at me the wrong way, you're dead.
Yeah.
But in the movies, it's always been like, oh, they're bad because they have the red sword.
Yeah.
You know?
And like they have like this like which I do, so we're like 10 minutes over.
That's okay.
So I want to finish this up, but like that's one of the things I do like about the prequels is that they do get into the ideological differences a lot more than other than just like, oh, it's the light side of the Force and the dark side of the Force. Like there's actually like they expand upon like what it means to be a Sith and what it means to be a Jedi, which
we just need to expand upon it outside of just exposition. Like
we need to see that.
Yeah, we need to see it.
Perhaps like a Darth Revan movie or something. Just gonna throw that out there.
Revan and Malik. Oh. Just be like, just call it the Fall of the Old Republic.
That's even a good name. Let's do it. The Fall of the Old Republic.
Disney's like right down the road, right? We can just drive over there.
Like Disney, guys. The Fall of the Old Republic. Revan and Malik. If you guys don't know who Revan and Malik is, please look them up. They are some of the most fascinating people in the Star Wars universe, extended universe. I think Revan is officially in this universe.
Oh, is he?
I think so.
Is he? Okay.
I don't know.
I was about
extent.
to say it's like none of that is canon anymore, though. So
I think that they've said that Revan is the name Revan is canon somewhere in there. I don't know.
So the character is, maybe his actions are not.
Yeah.
So.
But his actions need to be.
We need to wrap this up.
Yeah,
like
it's
you
gonna...
said, we're 10 minutes over. We could talk for hours about Star Wars and
we could talk about hours about anything.
That's true.
Assassin's Creed. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway,
gotta mention it.
Assassin's Creed. Woo! I gotta go see that movie. Maybe we'll talk about that in the next podcast.
Yeah, and I'll be like, so was it terrible? And you'll be like, yeah, and I'll be like, I told you.
I mean, everyone told me. I never said it was going to be good. I said I had hope that it might be good. Anyway, again, as always, thank you guys for watching if you got to this point. And any feedback that you guys have is greatly appreciated, even if it is just a good work. Keep it up, and we will make more of these. If you have any topic that you would like us to discuss at length, because that's what we do, at length, let us know.
Yeah, drop a comment, leave a like, something like that. Heck, if you didn't like this video, hit the dislike button.
Yeah, and then we'll never do this again, because you'll be the only one that left any feedback. It would be like, well, I guess they don't like us. But the more constructive the feedback is, the better, because we just want to improve, and the only way we can do that is with feedback. So see you guys next time on Split Couch Games.
Goodbye.
Bye.